The cinema, a place of comfort, entertainment, and escape into another world. And what world do we choose to escape to? Violence dominates the cinema screen nowadays. In fact, 90% of mainstream movies contain it. And audiences love it. The shock factor, the gore, the action. But could what we're seeing influence us to act violently in real life? We've turned firstly to criminology graduate Bethany Towers to gain an understanding of the potential link between violence in films and violence in real life.
So there's been obviously a lot of research into this, just with the massive influx of media over especially the last 50 years.
I'm a maniac. Oh, a maniac.
It's been found to be quite detrimental, especially on young people that have been allowed to view it. Hence, media companies putting ratings on such movies to avoid the detrimental effect it does have on these people. So the biology behind it, there's been found to be 3 short-term effects. The first one is priming processes. So this is when your brain creates a stimulus when it views an image or a person, and then they associate it to violence. So we've been brought up in a society where as soon as you see a gun, you associate it with aggression. The second is what's called arousal processes. So this is when you'll see a violent movie and you'll associate with it excitement, or say if it's an action movie, you'll associate it with explosions and fun, exciting imagery like that. So your brain forms that bond that violence equals excitement. The third one then results in the mimicry of this behaviour. So you'll take your stimulus and the arousal effect that it had on you previously, and you'll mimic that because you enjoy the sensation of what violence gives you.
Putting out violent content, do you think directors are responsible for the audience's response?
I'm not sure if directors are responsible for audiences' response when they put out violent content. I think it's really tough to know how someone is going to react to any sort of content, and if you put that restriction or pressure onto a filmmaker or a storyteller, you're adding a level of, not expectation, but trying to read an audience and understand what they're going to do, and it can hinder any sort of artistic intentions or what you're trying to achieve with your film.
Have you seen an increase in violence in modern media?
It's a difficult question because I think violence has always been present in media, contemporary media, yes. When I was younger, for instance, what would be considered extreme violence is probably not what contemporary cinema goers or audiences would consider as extreme violence. So I think changes in tastes and the way an audience has been desensitised has maybe made us feel that there's an increase or a decrease in violence, but I think it's pretty much been omnipresent.
Do you think that violent people in films are idolised and glamorised in a way?
I think in films the villains can often be very idolised. I think films are made in a way that's really interesting, that you often can strive for the villain. There's so many cases where people's favourite character is the villain, like Darth Vader or the Joker, which is kind of strange because you're rooting for the bad guy at the end of the day rather than the good one. But I think films do it in a very interesting way where you do kind of idolise them. Then that could be why people potentially are inspired by these characters in violent ways.
Now with obviously the research I mentioned earlier, it's been found that the average person spends 3 to 4 hours a day watching shows or movies at home. 60% of these contain violence and 40% of these contain extreme violence, so violent crimes such as rape, murder, torture, things like that. So you can see the correlation between how this could result in violent behaviours displayed in especially young children.
So there it is. From criminologists to cinema goers, the opinions between them couldn't be more divided, which might lead you to think, It's not the violent nature of the films you should be worried about, but the violent nature of the audience you sit with.